This is today's news on front page on 28 December 2021. Security policy sees economy as pivotal to stability, and Sajjad Sayed by Bakr Sajjad Sayed, 28 December 2021. Islamabad, the National Security Committee, NSC, on Monday approved the national security policy that puts economic stability at the core of a comprehensive national security. Prime Minister Imran Khan chaired a meeting of the NSC, which is the government's top most consultative and decision-making body for coordinating issues pertaining to national security. The session was attended by the federal ministers for foreign affairs, defense information and broadcasting, interior, finance and human rights, the national security advisors, services chiefs and senior officials. The 5-year policy document covering the period 2022 to 2026 is being flaunted by the government as the first ever strategy paper of its kind that sets out the state's national security vision and guidelines for attainment of those goals. It will guide the government's foreign, defense, and economic policies and decision-making. The document would now be presented before the federal cabinet for approval in what appears to be a mere formality after the nod by the powerful NSC. Although the policy will be shared publicly at a later stage, it reportedly seeks to leverage the symbiotic linkage among human security, economic security, and military security with safety and prosperity of citizens, being at the center of the whole of government approach. It covers both traditional and non-traditional security challenges, including economy, food, water, military security, terrorism, population growth, and dealings with the external world, especially major powers. The document places special emphasis on economic diplomacy as a focus of Pakistan's foreign policy aimed at avoiding being sucked into bloc politics in a world order under transition. Prime Minister Khan hailed the preparation and approval of the National Security Policy as a historic step. He directed the various government agencies to make a coordinated strategy for effective implementation of the policy and asked the National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf to submit a monthly report on the progress made towards putting it in practice. The National Security Committee was briefed on broader contours of the policy that has been prepared by the National Security Division. Several rounds of feedback consultations on multiple drafts were held with all state institutions, including provincial governments and the governments of Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Over 600 academics, analysts, civil society members, and students across Pakistan have been consulted to make the policy progress inclusive. A draft of the policy was earlier this month also shared with the Parliamentary Committee on National Security. The meeting was, however, boycotted by the opposition parties. The National Security Policy is expected to be a dynamic document which will be reviewed each year and on the transition of government to help keep it abreast with its policy priorities in a fast-changing global environment. Work on the policy began in 2014. Bilawal says anti-government drive to start from Lahore by MB Kalhoro, 2021, 28 December 2021. Gari Khudabaksh, rejecting the impression of a deal being sought by PPP, party chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has asked the party workers to get ready to launch a movement against the puppet government from Lahore after a meeting of the PPP's Central Executive Committee and Federal Council in the city on January 5. He was addressing a public gathering held in Garikhodabak's Bhutto, some 22 kilometers from Larkana, on Monday to mark a 14th death anniversary of former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. We will start the story movement from where PPP was born, said Mr. Bhutto Zardari. He said PPP did not believe in undemocratic means, adding that our deal is with people. Therefore, you workers should stand up for struggle, referring to the defeat of the ruling Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf at the hands of the PPP in the Senate elections and by-elections. He said the puppet government would have to go. Mr. Bhutto Zardari asked the provincial chiefs of PPP and the party heads in Gilgit-Baltistan and Jammu and Kashmir to chalk out programs for his visit. He said he would try to cover maximum areas, and Asif Ali Zardari, Priyal Talpur and Asifa Bhutto Zardari would speak to the workers where he could not reach. He said 14 years had passed, but the people still remembered Benazir Bhutto as presently democracy. Democracy was only in name, as there was no freedom of expression and people were braving economic distress. Quoting the PPP's slogan, democracy is the best revenge, he said. They had restored the 1973 constitution in its original shape, passed 18th Amendment, transferred powers to Parliament, and ensured completion of government's 5-year tenure. He spoke of attacks on democracy with the help of returning officers and said the people's votes were stolen and subsequently they were deprived of democracy and a puppet and inept government and an inefficient prime minister were imposed on the country. He said the PPP government had fought against terrorism, unfurled Pakistani flag in Swat and Waziristan, and broken terrorists back. On the other hand, he alleged President Dr. Arif Alvi and Prime Minister Imran Khan were begging for a deal with terrorists, and the government was making compromise with them while betraying the sacrifices of law enforcement agencies and the people. He said by passing 18th Amendment, the PPI government had financially empowered the provinces and quoted the examples of Gwadar Port, an extensive network of health facilities in Sindh in the shape of NICVD branches and energy projects in Thar. The PPP leader regretted non-implementation of 18th Amendment by the PTI-led government and accused it of robbing the provinces of their rights. However, the PPP would not allow the ruler to snatch the people's rights. He vowed, Mr. Bhutto Zardari said, Imran Khan's government neither believed in democracy nor wanted prosperity of the people. Going into Nashback, he said when PPP came into power, those were the days of economic recession in the world, but even then, a national economy was effectively handled. China-Pakistan economic corridor was introduced, salaries and the pensions were increased, and an agreement with Iran was signed overlaying Pakistan-Iran gas pipeline in to address the gas issue. Those days, rice, sugar, and wheat were export items, and the economy witnessed overall growth. Painting a gloomy picture of present days, he said the people were drowning in the tsunami of unprecedented price hike, braving storms of taxes, and host of issues pertaining to health, education, and unemployment, and paying high bills of electricity and gas, while the laborers and the peasants were suffering the most. The farmers were buying fertilizers on higher rates, though they contributed lion's share to the country's economy, he added. He said going to the IMF would further complicate the economic conditions in the country. He claimed that the answer lay only in the manifesto of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and philosophy of Benazir Bhutto. Therefore, he added, the people were looking towards Garib Khudabaksh Bhutto. He said they could not see the people trapped in the quagmire of problems. Therefore, Gialas should be ready to pull out the country from this situation. Pointing towards the crowd, he said the government would soon pack up and predicted that future elections are yours. Prime Minister and Chief Minister would be yours. In his brief speech, former President Asif Ali Zardari said time was not far when there would be PPP government at the center. He said right from Zulfikar Ali Bhutto to his Zardari's government, they had served the people. This is our manifesto. He said it was not the fate of poor people to remain poor. In a sarcastic style and without naming the rulers, he said whatever we say, they do not understand as they lack wisdom. He was confident that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari would change the fate of the people in the light of promises and commitments of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Benazir Bhutto. Former Prime Minister Raja Parvez Ashraf, Nisar Khoro, President of PPP, Sindh, MNAs Shagufta Jumani, Ejaz Zakhrani, and Khurshid Junejo, Abdul Qadir Shaheen from Punjab, Advocate Amjad from Gilgit-Baltistan, Mir Changiz Jamali from Balochistan, and Najmuddin Khan from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also spoke on the occasion. Earlier, Mushaira was held where poets from all over the country presented their verses and paid tributes to the dynamic leadership of Benazir Bhutto. PMLN was to block mini budget by our staff reporter. PMLN was to block mini budget by our staff reporter, 20th December 2021. Islamabad rejecting the government's plan to present a mini budget in the National Assembly. The main opposition Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz PMLN on Monday pledged to fight against it with full strength from the platform of joint opposition to guard the nation against this blatant injustice and economic terrorism. This was decided in a meeting of the PMLN parliamentary party at the Parliament House, which was attended by senior leadership of the party, according to a press release issued by PMLN Information Secretary Mariam Aurangzeb. The meeting was jointly presided over by PMLN Vice President Shahid Khaqan Abbasi and the party's parliamentary leader in the National Assembly, Khwaja Asif. The meeting took stock of the economic and political situation in the country. The participants discussed various strategies to counter mini budget and other government bills in the parliament. The meeting urged the government's allies not to compromise national and public interests by becoming part of the PDP's anti-public actions. They also discussed the matter of outreach towards government allies, strategy for ensuring attendance of all parliamentarians from joint opposition on the day of the tabling of mini budget, and government bills was discussed. The PMLN members observed that the government had already destroyed the economy and its wrong decisions had crushed the people under the mountain of inflation. They said that economic debt was hitting the roof, observed hitting the roof, observed that the government had already destroyed the economy and its wrong decisions had crushed the people under the mountain of inflation. They said that economic debt was hitting the roof while the national currency was facing constant devaluation. Industry, textile, trade, and manufacturing were all on the verge of collapse, as a result of which millions were losing their jobs while their families feared starvation. They said, the PMLN leaders said constant and unbearable rise in the prices of essential commodities and utilities had broken the back of the nation. All this was going on at a time when debt payments were at an all-time high, rupees 50.5 trillion in the history of the country. Social injustice, cruelty, and economic terrorism against the people of Pakistan must end, they said. They pointed out that despite skyrocketing tariffs of electricity and gas, circular debt had doubled over just 3 years and half months, 3 years and 3 years and 5 months of the PTI rule. The staggering increase in the current account deficit, trade deficit, and the policy rate were pouring oil on the fire of economic destruction, they said. The meeting agreed that the government had failed to protect national and the public interests under these grave circumstances created by it. They said the people would be forced to commit mass suicides if the government was allowed to continue any further. The meeting unanimously agreed that the mini budget on the directive of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) would annihilate the country like a nuclear bomb, and as a result, inflation would increase manifold. The already choked industry, trade, and economy as a whole would stop breathing altogether, and the country would be mortgaged to the IMF. The PMLN parliamentary party warned that this was compromising Pakistan's sovereignty, which it condemned in the strongest manner possible. It declared that it would be treason against the country, its people, and its national interest to enslave Pakistan and surrender its sovereignty by bulldozing legislation through the parliament. The meeting also condemned the violation of Supreme Court's orders by displaying an advertisement with Imran Khan's pictures on the parliament building and demanded that the higher judiciary must take notice of this. The government is planning to present the mini budget in the National Assembly on Wednesday, tomorrow, after its approval by the Federal Cabinet on Tuesday today. Supreme Court recalls Wahab's removal orders after apology. Supreme Court recalls Wahab's removal orders after apology by Ishaq Tanoli, 28 December 2021, Karachi. The Supreme Court on Monday lashed out at Karachi Municipal Corporation KMC Administrator Murtaza Wahab for making a political statement before it and ordered his removal from the post, but recalled the order after the administrator tendered an apology. A two-judge bench comprising Chief Justice of Pakistan CJP, Gulzar Ahmad, and Justice Qazi Muhammad Amin Ahmad, however, directed Mr. Wahab to perform his duties as the city administrator without being influenced by the political association and without any political interference. The apex court was hearing a case about the Gutter Bagicha Park, wherein the administrator contended that the total land of the park spanned 1,016 acres, out of which 200 acres had been allotted to the KMC Officers Housing Society in 1993 by the then Mayor Dr. Farooq Sattar. He submitted that 162 acres were available for the park and the KMC will start plantation on it in March. However, he also conceded that there were many portions of the parkland encroached upon by industries, Kachiyabadis, and around Eve graveyards. There was also a treatment plant on the premises, he added. Justice Amin snubbed the administrator and asked him not to go out of context when Mr. Wahab, while referring to Dr. Sattar, said it was a political matter. Amber Ali Bahi of Shahri citizens for a better environment, pleading the case against encroachments on Gutter Bagicha land, pointed out that there were some political factors also in the instant case. At this point, Mr. Wahab, in an emotional outburst, attempted to address the court to defend his party, the Pakistan People's Party. However, a visibly annoyed Chief Justice of Pakistan directed him to leave the courtroom immediately for trying to deliver a political speech and ordered his removal from the post of the administrator. While dictating Mr. Wahab's removal order, the Chief Justice of Pakistan said, instead of assisting the court, and the administrator tried to make a political statement against which he was warned time and again, but he continued to argue the case of his political party. An administrator must be someone who conducted himself in a neutral way above political affiliation, he added. We find that the administrator cannot disconnect himself from a political party he belongs to, and apparently this is not allowing him to function in a neutral manner, as he was deviated from his task of doing work of the administrator and is making statement before the court and representing the case of his political party, the CJP. The Chief Justice of Pakistan observed. He further said Mr. Wahab expressed anger in the court and was not fit to hold the position of the administrator. He directed the Sindh Chief Minister to immediately remove Mr. Wahab from the post and appoint a suitable person as the administrator. However, when the bench reassembled after a break, it recalled the order about Mr. Wahab's removal after he tendered an apology. While Sindh Advocate General Salman Talibuddin and Ms. Alibahi also requested the bench to consider the administrator's apology and withdraw its order. Ms. Alibahi argued that as per the maps, the entire land of Gutter Bagicha was meant for amenity purposes, but also considered that there was no notification available in this regard. The Chief Justice of Pakistan remarked that They needed legal documents about the status of the entire land, and the maps were not sufficient. The hearing was adjourned till Tuesday today as the chairman of the Karachi Municipal Corporation, KMC officers, Housing Society sought time and to engage a council. Headhunting for the new NAB. This is the new news. Headhunting for new NAB chairman begins by Malik Asad, 28 December 2021, Islamabad. Search for the new chairman of the National Accountability Bureau, NAB, has formally started after names of prospective candidates for the slot surfaced on Monday. Among the hopefuls are serving and retired bureaucrats as well as a former judge of the Supreme Court. Earlier this month, the Ministry of Law and Justice initiated the process to appoint the new NAB chairman and forwarded the summary to President Dr. Arif Alvi for approval. The tenure of the incumbent chairman, retired Justice Javed Iqbal, had expired in October. However, the government extended his term through a presidential ordinance. The recent amendments to the National Accountability Ordinance, NAO, allowed Justice Iqbal to continue until his replacement was found. According to sources, the government is considering the names of Interior Secretary Yusuf Nasim Kokar, Religious Affairs Secretary, retired Captain Sardar Ijaz Ahmed Khan, Jafar, Captain Sardar Ijaz Ahmed Khan Jafar, and former Federal Investigation Agency FIA Director General Muhammad Amlish. However, Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry denied such a development. In a tweet, the minister said the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI government had so far not proposed any name for NAB chairman and termed the news incorrect. He said a decision on the new chief of the anti-graft watching would be taken in a few days after proper consultation. On the other hand, the sources said a full-member committee of the opposition parties have proposed retired Justice Dost Muhammad Khan, former bureaucrats Nasir Said Khan Khosa, Salman Siddiq, and Jalil Abbasi Jilani for the post. The Ulama Islam, JUIF, backed former Supreme Court Judge Justice Dost Muhammad Khan. Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, PMLN, nominated ex-Punjab Chief Secretary Khosa as well as former Federal Secretary Siddiq, whereas Pakistan People's Party PPP suggested former Foreign Affairs Secretary Jilani for the top NAB post. Meanwhile, the Law Ministry in the summary forwarded unto President Alvi Alvi pointed out that in light of a Supreme Court judgment, the president was supposed to consult the Prime Minister and the opposition leader in the National Assembly for the appointment of NAB chairman. The ordinance amended subsection B of NAO's section 6 to give extension to the NAB chairman by excluding the word non-extendable from the statute. Section 5 says, there shall be a chairman, a National Accountability Bureau, to be appointed by the president in consultation with the leader of the House and the leader of the opposition in the National Assembly. Sources said, although there was no time frame to complete meaningful consultation in case the president felt that the Prime Minister and the opposition leader could not reach a consensus on a name, he could refer the matter to the parliamentary committee Clause 2 of Section 5 of the NAO states that the committee shall be consulted by the National Assembly Speaker comprising 50% members from the Treasury benches and the remaining from the opposition parties based on their strength in the Majlis Shura Parliament to be nominated by the respective parliamentary leaders. Clause 3 provides that the parliamentary committee may confirm any name for appointment as the chairman as per the amended NAO. The total strength of the parliamentary committee shall be 12 members, out of which 1/3 will be from the Senate. If the National Assembly is dissolved at the material time, all members of the committee shall be from the Senate, the law says. And in the end, the formal request, if you have not yet, please subscribe our channel and press the like and bell button to get the fresh from us. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time and goodbye.